Nissan's GTR LM Nismo. Could this be one of the most misunderstood Le Mans prototype race car? Internal controversies surround its incompletion, certainly a contributing factor. Budget was tight as well. It raced as a front-wheel drive mid-front engine slippery Le Mans prototype race car, completely designed around the fundamentals of the Le Mans track, especially around the Mulsanne Straight. The car that defied the status quo of forward acceleration physics in driving the rear wheels, that is center of gravity, weight transfer dependent, rear weight biased to improve tire load, and ultimately grip, especially in the era of aggressive slow in fast out driving. So in the mind of many, if not most, it was bound to fail, and fail it most certainly did, satisfying many of its critics along the way. However, was the GTR LM designed as a front-wheel drive car or four-wheel drive car? It participated in the Le Mans prototype Class 1 hybrid that made four-wheel drive lawful. Pitting a high-powered front-wheel drive car only against a four-wheel drive won't go so well. The car was actually both front and four-wheel drive by design, but due to issues with its mechanically kinetic hybrid drive that was supposed to be responsible for rear drive, it ran with only front drive. So what was the formula they saw that was going to make the car competitive? For one, it was going to be the most committed racing car towards aerodynamic fundamentals, that all else will be secondary, hence the unorthodox platform. This commitment was born from aerodynamic advantage being a key to success in modern racing that allow high downforce, and they found a loophole in the regulations on diffusers where there was no limit on front diffuser dimensions and only rear, then work on the rest. They ended up with a front diffuser that ran from the front splitter alongside the engine and front wheels all the way to the driver's footwell. Bar the engine and front wheel well, nearly the entire front end floor is a diffuser, including the front gearbox. Having a floor and that tunnel central in producing downforce allowed the car to have much cleaner body shape. This contributed to a reduction in drag, yet maintained or supposed to maintain superior downforce or a greater downforce to drag ratio. Since downforce was front bias, they created a platform that has weight front bias as well to take advantage of that superior downforce. Unlike most of today's racing cars, where they have a lot of blades and canards and all sort of aerodynamic adjustments, the Nissan GTR is very clean instead. The frontal area of aerodynamics is far more advantageous because the car's aerodynamic did not rely on trying to get the air as wide as possible, which would create a large frontal area. As you can see in this picture is the front diffuser underneath, which would where the gearbox would be mounted to that crash structure, and embedded into that crash structure is the air intakes that is going towards the turbochargers. Here we can see the lower diffuser and the tunnel, the tunnel outlet. What's also interesting here is how small the rear wheel width is, allowing for so much more space between the two rear wheels, and airflow. Here we can clearly see the compact rear suspension designed to give access to those tunnels. Here is also more evidence of the further development plans they had for the car. I was trolling Ricardo de Villa's Twitter and he gave me some information on the car. This is the floor I drew, and it was based on many pictures, and eventually somebody actually gave me a picture of the floor, but not a direct picture, but an oncoming picture at an angle. And basically this is what the floor looks like here. As you can see, the front access towards the tunnel, they want to get the front wheel wake into the tunnel, so it won't disrupt the diffuser. The front diffuser and you can see the shape. There is a large gap on top, which probably is they're playing around with some aerodynamics here. There's probably some airflow going past that particular gap in high speeds. As can be seen in this picture, you look at the bottom area of the gearbox and you can see the clutch. There is a slight V shape, and this also plays a part as the front diffuser. Here is another interpretation of the front diffuser. Although I do believe that the access to the tunnel was pulled further backwards, again because of the front wheel wake. This is the only picture I've got of the floor, the underfloor, and the only picture clearly showing the front diffuser. Basically, this is what the tunnel looks like from the front diffuser going past the chassis of the car towards the rear, where the rear aerodynamic drag would extract even more air from the front. This was the two flywheel hybrid power, and it was supposed to be propelled by the front wheels in generating, and it was supposed to give power towards the rear wheels. Eventually they did have the rear drive shaft connected, but it was connected to nothing. It was just over there, probably due to regulations. The flywheel, the two flywheels, they spun the vacuum to 55,000 RPM, and the outer circumference of the flywheel was traveling an equivalent of Mach 3, or Mach 3.5. The reason why they use flywheel as regenerative energy is because they saw that the flywheel could run consistently throughout the 24 hours. With the battery would wear off as the race goes on towards the closing stages. So this was the advantage that they had anticipated during the closing stages of an endurance race. The flywheel hybrid system, it was successful on the jig, but succumbed to high G forces when on the track. And then that's when they started to get some problems with the system. And this is what's supposed to be the rear drive system. And not only was supposed to drive the rear wheels, there was supposed to be some kind of electromechanical torque vectoring into the system. The 3-liter twin turbocharged engine was charged cool, and the exhaust and the turbochargers were raised with the charge cooling heat exchangers also underneath the turbochargers. And this was actually to give way for the front diffuser that would access to the tunnel. The engine was also direct injection. It's a Cosworth Nismo developed unit. The engine and gearbox are full stress members, with the gearbox being ahead of the engine and slightly raised, being a participant to that front diffuser. What's also interesting is the design of the rear suspension. It's very compact. So here we can also see that even the rear suspension dimensions were taken into account to improve aerodynamics, to be able to make a larger tunnel and access to the rear of the car. What is clearly seen here at the rear, other than the lower diffuser, is the tunnel access and the volume of air the rear is going to extract from the front diffuser. So this is the entire car is a front diffuser. Here we can see the exit from the front diffuser to the rear, and this would scavenge air from the front diffuser past the tunnel towards this rear section, where most likely that the amount of drag at the rear also plays a part in generating even more downforce. What's also very interesting, if you look at the dimensions of the lower diffuser, which probably represent the downforce behind the car, to the upper exits for the front diffuser. Looking at the dimensions, you can actually see the weight distribution. The basic weight distribution using the dimensions of the tunnel extractors and the lower diffuser, whereby that 65 35 weight distribution is actually seen to be made by the engineers. Yeah? So you can see the engineering happening here. On this picture, the motorsport.com picture, this is where the tunnel starts. Yeah, after the engine, and probably just before the driver's footwell, from a forward motion point of view. Yeah? Okay, what contributed to the failure of a car is because the car was very bespoke in its design. So what would happen was the engineers and the designers were very clever in utilizing the front weight bias. Yeah, it had probably 60 to 65% front weight, and what would happen is they had designed this together with a larger front wheel width to contribute to more regenerative energy. Yeah? Because the front and the front brakes would generate more energy, then the hybrid system would actually be even more powerful than the normal or other racers. So this was one huge advantage they had, which was failed by the hybrid system. When the hybrid system failed, the regenerative energy that was supposed to be taken in did not materialize. So this put a lot of work on the brakes, and they had brakes failure because the brakes was designed slightly smaller in believing that the hybrid system would take in the braking energy. Yeah? Because this did not realize, so they had less hybrid power, they had problems with the brakes, and they also could not utilize the four-wheel drive system that was on the car. Yeah? And the four-wheel drive system was on the car because of regulations. So it was a cascading problem, yeah, one after the other. However, during the race, the car was very efficient. The targeted high downforce and low drag was met, or thereabouts, and it was very efficient also on tire wear and also top speed. Yeah. One big disadvantage the car had was exiting corners. Yeah. Now, in modern day driving, the new age racing drivers tend to be even more and more aggressive when driving slow in, fast out. So with the center of gravity and weight transfer on exiting the corner, putting more load to the outer rear wheel. So on the opposite end is the inner front wheel. Yeah. So this center of pressure change would actually relieve the front of some load and grip. Obviously, the car's very low center of gravity would minimize this. And the whole idea was to generate so much downforce that any disadvantage on this particular physics would be countered by the additional extra downforce generated at the front. So the front downforce would basically press the front and push the front down. So this weight transfer or this pressure transfer would not have that bigger effect. This was the idea. Eventually, the car succumbed to time and budget. Yeah, there was not enough time and there was not enough budget to develop the car to see its true potential. It was 20 seconds off pace from the fastest lap in the 2015 Le Mans 24 hours. And typically, it's just like any other underdeveloped car that would not perform regardless of the technology or engineering and design.